What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sports Bluff, a Thanksgiving edition as we get ready to spend some time with the family and watch a Cowboys-Chiefs game in just a couple of days. A lot of people off work this week, winding down. And as the holidays enter, football starts to get into full gear. This is when it means the most. This is when teams are fighting for their lives. 2025, probably the most wide open the NFL's been as long as I can remember, maybe since like 2008. It feels completely upside down. The teams you expect to be at the top are fighting for their lives. Teams people had written off preseason, never expected to be here, are going to have home playoff games. Everything is ahead of us, and those teams are in good position. Some of the favorites are just trying to stay in it. We will talk about one of those, the Chiefs, and how they were able to somehow defeat the Colts. Dallas having an epic comeback over Philadelphia. And then since it's Thanksgiving and everything, I'm probably a shorter episode, but I do want to take a moment just to look at the playoff picture, AFC, NFC, and just do a quick overview of where teams stand, what we think about them, and how we see this thing shaking out. So without further ado, let's just jump into the episode. The Cowboys defeated the Philadelphia Eagles 24-21 in an epic comeback, down 21-0. Looked like they were out of it. Dak Prescott, George Pickens kind of put on a clinic and saved their season, really, because they are in this thing. This was a game that I thought was going to be a complete blowout. Philly came out of the gates strong. That offense looked like what we had kind of been asking for all season. They were getting the ball to A.J. Brown. They were moving it around. They were making plays, moving down the field at will. Dallas couldn't do anything to stop them. On top of that, you had Philly's defense stepping up as you expected. It looked like Dallas was in for a long, long day. And eventually, that Philly offense just started to stall out. I think they scored their final points with like 12 minutes left in the second quarter, and they were never able to get anything going after that. A lot of punts, a lot of 3-and-outs, a couple moments where they drove downfield and maybe got into territory. They missed a field goal, and then Barkley, I believe, had that fumble on the screen pass. And Dak Prescott was able to just deliver a really critical win for Dallas to keep their season alive. George Pickens kind of looking like a superstar. The guy we always knew he had this talent, and now he's executing on this level. And I know I'm not like saying trading Micah Parsons was a great idea, but everyone laughed, pointed fingers at Jerry, myself included, even though I knew you could never pay Dak, Lamb, and Micah. I always knew that was fool's gold. Like, that was not going to happen. I thought they should have traded one of the other guys and kept Micah. But moving Micah, because you knew what this season was kind of going to be, getting those picks, getting Quinn Williams, got Kenny Clark because of it. Now the interior of that defensive line looks solid. You got some first-round picks. You can go try to get some edge rushers, get some other players. George Pickens, that trade has worked out really well. Jerry Jones has, done a decent job putting them in this position. I think even I am one to criticize him often, but he opens himself up to it with all the interviews, all the talk about the Cowboys, all of the marketing. It's the personality that really gets you aggravated with Jerry Jones. It's not necessarily that Jerry as the GM, because he does draft a lot of good players and makes some good moves, even if they are questionable. You can debate what they should have done with Micah Parsons, but clearly it is not going to be the disaster a lot of folks expected it to be for Dallas when they did it. And Dallas's defense was able to really just rein Jalen Hurts in, because it looked like this was going to be one of those surprise Jalen Hurts games where Philly pops and you can't stop them, which wouldn't have been shocking given how Dallas's defense has played so far this season. They've been a team that other quarterbacks, other offenses can get a lot of stats, a lot of points on. And Brian Schottenheimer, another Jerry Jones decision that we all thought was going to be a disaster and go sideways, he's done a really solid job with the Cowboys. He is making it work, especially with these personalities, with everything you got going on in Dallas. He is doing a good job. I know the record has been up and down. They're not the most, impressive team on a week-to-week basis, 5-1, but to be in the hunt, to beat the Philadelphia Eagles in this game, it says a lot. I will say, when Dallas got the football in the red zone after the fumbled punt return by Philly, and they got to 4th and goal, and Schottenheimer did not kick the field goal to go up, I thought that was a disaster, was going to cost them the game. It's a tie game, 4 minutes left in the football game. Philly's defense has done nothing since early second quarter. Kick the field goal, go up 3 points. If you take the lead there, you probably win the football game. Instead, they go for the touchdown, get stopped, thankfully. The defense gets Dak the ball back, but then you have to have a long drive. This analytic thing is going a little too far. I like being aggressive. I like trying to get the touchdown, stay ahead of it. But there has to be an element of this where you're aware of what kind of football game you're in. You have to be able to understand, okay, yes, maybe statistically I should go for this in this situation, but their offense hasn't been able to do anything since the second quarter. So why would I risk that? My defense has been able to shut them down for 2.5 quarters. I think they can do it for one more drive, and they'll need a touchdown to beat me. So let's just go up 3 and put the pressure on them, because the pressure hadn't been on Philly until late in that game because they had the lead. That was a horrible decision. Could have bit them. It didn't. And Dallas all of a sudden has a really, really big game against Kansas City on Thanksgiving, with both teams having a lot to play for, because Dallas is absolutely still in this thing right now. They're like 2 spots out, a little behind Panthers and the Lions. The way things shake out, they could absolutely make the playoffs. They kind of have things in front of them. And this was a gutsy, impressive performance. Dak Prescott played great. CeeDee Lamb, a lot of drops, but George Pickens was there and delivered when he needed to give them one of their biggest wins of the season. If you don't mind, please subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on a video. We're talking the NFL all season long. Back to the video. Philadelphia's offense has been a hot topic of conversation this season because, one, A.J. Brown keeps bringing it up, but when you watch the games, anybody with eyes can see that this offense is not good and has stretches of just being terrible. They have games, I think it was the Lions game, where as much as you love football, it's just difficult to watch. And I'm a guy who loves defensive football games. I do not just say because a game's, 40-40, it's a good football game. No, I like hard-fought defensive football games. But that's not always what the Eagles are in. They're in games where their defense is playing elite, but their offense is just unable to do anything at all. This game against Dallas started out the opposite. They got off really hot, moving the ball around, getting A.J. Brown involved early. It seemed like that was obviously they went into the game with that game plan. Jalen Hurts was dealing. He wasn't as safe and conservative with the football. It looked like they were just going to blow the doors off of Dallas. And after that last touchdown, it just stopped. And it reverted back to the same old Philly offense it's been most of the season. There's a lot of reasons for this, but I see a lot of people asking and talking about, should we be worried about Philadelphia because of the way the offense looks? Is it time to be concerned about how this affects them as a championship team? I still think in general the defense is good enough to carry them most of the way. But my concern with the offense isn't even how bad it looks at times. It's what it might do to the team. Because as we've seen, they're very outspoken. A.J. Brown is not happy, and as more and more reports start to come out of Philadelphia, I think it's obvious this isn't A.J. Brown on a rogue mission trying to talk bad about Jalen. It seems like he's speaking for a lot of the players. I think a lot of the guys in the locker room are aggravated with Jalen Hurts, and maybe Kevin Petula as well, but I don't think A.J. Brown is out on a limb here, clearly. There have been a couple reports that have indicated that is the truth. It feels like if they want to make a deep run and really defeat the Rams, the Seahawks, win against whoever the AFC contender is, they're going to have to button it up. They don't have to have a great offense, but they can't have 2.5 quarters where they just don't do anything. Not only were they unable to score in the second half, they very rarely could move the football. I think they had the missed field goal drive and then the Barkley fumble. I think that was in the second half, but they're just not even moving the ball. A lot of times it's 3 and outs, or maybe you'll get a first down, 5 plays and then you're punting. Eventually, that's going to break you, especially when it becomes a topic where your receivers are talking about it. They're getting frustrated. Obviously, Barkley's frustrated because he's not having the season he expected coming off of last year. A lot of that is because he had a historic season last year with a huge workload. And also the offensive line isn't as good as it was last year. They've had some injuries. It's not an elite offensive line like it was. if they can somehow walk the tightrope and honestly even kind of do what they did today, because there have been games where the 21 points they had today and that initial start would have been awesome. It's actually been the opposite a lot of the season. They've started terrible and then had an offensive explosion there at the end when they needed it. If they could just spread it out a little bit more, have like 2 big drives in each half, that would do a lot for this football team, because the defense is good enough to carry them a long, long way. But you saw that they had trouble stopping George Pickens, which, you're not going to face a lot of guys with that kind of talent. It just worries you because Jalen Hurts doesn't target the middle of the field a lot. It's, dink and dunk, safe throws, or he's taking a deep 101 shot to Smith or A.J. Brown. And I without looking at the film, I can't say exactly what went wrong, but we know Dallas does not have an elite defense. So for Philly to completely fall apart in the second half, let your rival not only crawl back into it, but then win the game is kind of, hard to swallow, especially when Dallas went and, when it became a tie game and you still weren't able to do anything, when the pressure was on, when you knew, okay, it's time. Because that's where Jalen actually has been good. As bad as the offense has been at points, it will usually come to a point where Jalen's like, okay, I need to make a play. And he'll take a deep shot and hit Devontae Smith or something. That's kind of been their MO. They didn't get away with that today. And I'm not comparing it to the team from 2 years ago, but I am saying if Nick Sirianni isn't careful, and if he's not able to get his arms around this situation, it might hit a breaking point. It wouldn't take much for something to happen and really splinter their locker room and just the team kind of fall apart. You want to believe that wouldn't happen because right now they're the 2 seed. They've got a good record, but they had a good record when it happened 2 years ago. I think they started 10-0. So it's incumbent on Sirianni to make sure that doesn't happen. He has to try and keep this thing cohesive, keep everybody together, keep everyone believing, hey, we're okay, we're going to execute in the moments, and the defense is going to make enough plays. We split with Dallas. We beat them early in the year in week 1. We're going to be fine. It's going to be a tightrope. He's been able to manage most of that so far. That's going to be the key to if Philly's going to have a successful postseason run or not. I would love to come on here after a game like that and be like, we are back, guys. That's what I wanted to see. Now the Chiefs are rolling. Look out, everybody. We're going to be scary. They could get hot. They could keep rolling. Obviously, they needed this game. Beating Indianapolis says a lot about their talent when they execute. And I think we've seen Indy's flaws as well. I'll talk about that in a second. The problem for me is it still looked a lot like the same old Chiefs. They were super sloppy. You had the one touchdown taken off the board by a bullshit face mask. But besides that, you saw some penalties. You saw missed opportunities. The Mahomes interception to start the game essentially gave Indy 7 points right there. That was brutal. It just seemed like this was going to be another Chiefs game where they continued to shoot themselves in the foot. Big penalties that would wipe away big plays, the turnover. They just couldn't execute in the moments, and it started to pile up, and it felt like it was going to get away from them. Somehow they claw back into it, mainly because of the defense. I mean, they did a great job holding Jonathan Taylor down, keeping him under 60 yards. I figured they would do that. Spags and this Chiefs defense usually don't let running backs have a big day on them. They're able to rein that in. And we know Daniel Jones is limited. Like, could he beat you? And the answer was no. So the defense deserves all the credit in the world because they showed up today and made a lot of stops. I think they forced 4 3-and-outs at the end of the game when the offense just couldn't really punch it in. They'd move the ball and just couldn't score in the red zone. Kind of looked like the Chiefs from last year. They'd have these drives and just couldn't capitalize on it with a touchdown. If they get one touchdown, this game gets out of reach the other way because you look at the box score and it is completely lopsided. Kansas City had like 30 first downs. They had like 45 minutes on time of possession or something ridiculous. 35 minutes. They controlled the clock. It was all Kansas City. And despite that, the score was really close and Indianapolis had their opportunities. This is a huge game for Kansas City's defense. Chris Jones knew he had to play well, and he did. They were able to get pressure. Like I said, they kept Jonathan Taylor limited. If they can do more of that, that's what you want to see. They had trouble getting pressure a lot this season, especially with 4. The blitzes were working today. It just felt like the defense was maybe the most dialed in it's been all season. Does that say something about the Colts? Maybe, but to be fair, the Colts have, this Colts offense has kind of run over every defense they've played. So the fact that Kansas City's defense looked this good and was able to execute in such a big moment makes me feel a lot better about that side of the ball, because I thought it might kind of be the opposite. And the defense is really what ended up winning this game because they kept Indianapolis off the board. On the offensive side for Kansas City, things to be excited about. Andy Reid committing to the run. Hunt had over 100 yards. That was awesome. They still didn't go under center a lot. They're just not going to do that. There were a lot of RPOs and shotgun inside zone calls on short yardage that I didn't like. But you notice when they commit to the run game, it changes the defense a little. And also, you stay ahead of the schedule. They weren't getting into these 3rd and 15s a lot. They were staying in these manageable down and distances. And that's why they were able to move the football, drain the clock, keep the time of possession. Even though they couldn't punch it in when they got into the red zone and goal to go, they still were moving the ball effectively. And at the end of the game, when they needed to, Rashee Rice showed up and showed out. There was a portion of this game, like second quarter, third quarter, where Mahomes looked bad. Like I was genuinely worried just for how his season was going, because he was making mistakes. He was, you saw Romo talk about it, even though I think he over-exaggerated it. Mahomes was kind of rushing through his progressions. He would bail out of the clean pocket too soon or move up in and try to force a throw when he had time. You started to see those bad habits that he has from time to time, from not trusting his protection or whatever, or not trusting his receivers. You started to see some of that creep in, but thankfully that went away in the fourth quarter. He made his magic, particularly once he hit that big crossing route to Rashee Rice and he took off. Then the offense felt different. The Colts like to play a lot of man, and Rice beat him. Rice is an awesome receiver. I think he's starting to get his legs back underneath him, feel comfortable. And if Mahomes and him can continue to hit on those plays, that's been one of the things the Chiefs just haven't been able to rely on. They haven't been able to just throw it to a guy and have him break off a 30-yard play because they haven't had much of a run game. Rice had been out most of the season. It was all, whoever Mahomes threw it to, they'd catch it, and that was wherever they called it was where the play ended. So to have a guy who could actually get yards after the catch, yards after contact like Kareem Hunt was doing, that was big. I want to see them committing to the run like this moving forward. I don't think you can overstate how important that was. And that's not just against Indianapolis. I think that's against anyone. Because we saw with Denver last week, when these teams don't fear you, when they don't fear you running the football, they're not going to bite on it. Go back and watch some of the play actions last week against Denver. Patrick Mahomes is running a play action, and the linebackers are already bailing. They just don't believe that you're going to run the football. Obviously, Andy Reid was able to self-scout. He heard the uproar. He understands football better than any of us do, and he made the adjustment. So he deserves a lot of credit. This was a gutsy win. You heard a lot of talk going into this fairly about how they were 0-5 in one-score games this year. Finally, they win one of those in overtime in a big moment. If you're a Chiefs fan, which I am, what you hope is that this win is the catalyst. You hope it's the spark to have the team believe, and maybe they just put it together and go on a run here, because they really do kind of need to win out. Yeah, they can drop one game, but for me to feel like they're a real contender or a real threat, I really want them to win out. I will say, even though I am, more honest with my Chiefs conversation than I think some fans, I know no team wants to play Kansas City in the playoffs. If Kansas City is the wild card and they're going to Denver or going to Indianapolis or New England or wherever, I promise you that team's not going to want to see Patrick Mahomes in that spot. You just wonder if this maybe puts some life in Kansas City. Can they keep it going? They've got a huge game against Dallas on Thanksgiving. That's going to be a real fight, a game with big, playoff implications for both teams. I can't wait to watch that one. Kansas City just needs to keep taking care of business and keep running the football because it works. Kareem Hunt did a great job today. The defense played fantastic, and they made the plays when they needed to, despite a lot of the mistakes early. That was good. Let's see if they can keep that momentum going. Indianapolis losing this game to the Chiefs when they had their opportunities was them failing to meet the moment. And that was something we all were wondering, could they actually go in there into Arrowhead and win this game? Could they end the Chiefs season? Could they prove they're a real Super Bowl threat? The answer to all of those questions was no. I don't know if you would say that they got exposed in this game because it was obviously a very close competitive game that the Chiefs almost lost. The Colts could have won this game. But not just looking at this game, let's zoom out to bigger picture. I do think this game just shows you the big problem with the Colts, which as much as I love Shane Steichen, and I really do, I think he's an offensive wizard, and I love Lou Anarumo. He does a great job with the defense. Cincinnati was stupid for letting him go because their roster was bad. The thing I've been saying is this team, it has a Jonathan Taylor superstar, carrying them. So when they get into these games where you shut Jonathan Taylor down or you greatly limit him and force them to pass the ball with Daniel Jones, it's probably not going to look the same. It's probably going to fall apart. We saw that when they played the Steelers of all teams. And today, the Chiefs did a great job reining Jonathan Taylor in. He had that one run for 30 yards or whatever. But other than that, I think it was a run, might have been a catch, whatever. Other than that, he was, reined in under 60 yards. And Daniel Jones had to throw the ball to win the football game. And he had opportunities, especially late in the game when the Chiefs were sending blitzes. He had open guys and he missed them. And that's the difference. A lot of people want to compare Daniel Jones to Sam Darnold because of, the resurgence he's having this year. Although Darnold does kind of break down in those big moments, and Darnold definitely has a big game problem, the difference is Darnold is excellent through the regular season. And in this game, Darnold probably would have been dealing. Daniel Jones is way more limited than Darnold. Darnold has, some elite traits. Daniel Jones really doesn't. And while he's done a great job managing the offense and doing what Steichen asks him to do, and we've seen how good Shane Steichen is when you actually give him a competent quarterback. And really, that's all he's going to need to be most of the season. But that's kind of what he is. He's a competent quarterback, in this system. He is a system quarterback. And when you need him to make a play with Chris Jones in his face and deliver that ball, it's going to be a little off. It's just not going to be on the money. And he might have a moment or a game where he's able to do it, but I don't think it's going to be consistent. That's why I just don't view the Colts as a team that can win the Super Bowl, because as good as they are, I can't picture Daniel Jones, hoisting the Lombardi trophy and being like, we did it, because their defense isn't elite. They are operating off of Jonathan Taylor. And when you get into these big games, especially late in the season, Jonathan Taylor will be a huge advantage. But I am a believer that in this era of football, there's going to be moments in the playoffs where your quarterback has to put the team on his shoulders and win the football game for you. I feel like we see it every year, despite your defense, despite how good the team is, whatever. And now a quarterback at Daniel Jones level can do that. They can have games like that. We've seen that. Even if they haven't had them before, it could be like, wow, he did it when he needed to. But I'm just not going to expect Daniel Jones to do that. And the Chiefs were able to expose the biggest flaw with Indy. You don't want to say they're one-dimensional because they're not. They got a lot of pitches, but all of them come off of the fact that Jonathan Taylor has to be a big weapon. He has to be the focal point of the offense. And when you start to take that away, you 4 straight 3-and-outs to end the game. You have your opportunities and you can't capitalize on it because Daniel Jones just isn't that kind of quarterback. They're still in a good spot. They're more than likely going to have a home playoff game. They shouldn't look at this loss too bad. They need to recalibrate, move on, try to win out, and then see who you get in the playoffs. If the season ended today, 3 NFC North teams would all make the playoffs, and it's a really tight race coming down to the wire. Right now, the Bears lead the division. All 3 of them won today. Chicago, Caleb had, I think, maybe his best performance yet, just in quarterback play. Green Bay took care of business, and Detroit almost getting upset by the Giants, but Jahmyr Gibbs going off, Detroit winning in overtime, doing what they need to do. This is going to be a tight race, and I pulled up the rankings just to look at how each team stands overall. Right here, yards a game, as you can see, Bears and Lions, both top 5, Packers mid-pack. Points per game, 8th, 13th, 2nd for the Lions. Defensive yards a game, Chicago's giving up a lot more than the other two, same with points. Red zone offense, Bears not as efficient as the other two. Red zone defense, Packers the only one that's really efficient. But look at that list, and the point of me showing you this is all these teams are really close. Like, these are very competitive football teams. The knock on Chicago is they haven't really played anybody. I agree. I think during the home stretch, we're going to find out what they're made of. But I think Ben Johnson's an excellent coach. He's shown that. And Chicago fans, I know they're just ecstatic to be in this situation, to be in the playoff picture. They're 8-3. This is one of the best seasons they've had in years. They don't care if they do fall off. I mean, obviously they don't want to, but if they fall off a cliff, they're still going to be ecstatic. Just the fact that they're playing in meaningful games this late in the season. And their quarterback has been playing well the last week or two, honestly, and they've got a head coach. That means a lot to that franchise. The Lions don't look as dominant as they have, and clearly losing Ben Johnson is a big part of it. I don't think I'm bought in on Dan Campbell, the play caller. It's just they're clearly missing something. Jahmyr Gibbs really saved them today. Like, he is a superstar that kind of bailed them out, because him breaking those big plays drastically changes their games. I know it's silly to say if you take their biggest weapon away, but if you take away the big plays that he breaks, like, their offense is not as powerful. And it's just not the Detroit Lions team that they have been from years past. So are they talented enough to go on a run and win the Super Bowl? I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if any team in the NFC North is that good. The question is, when you look at the three of them, who do you trust the most? I think for me, despite the fact that I have been critical of them, particularly offensively, I think I trust Green Bay the most, just because Jordan Love and the defense. Like, Jordan Love, if he can, not have to force the ball and just play smart, which he has been lately, particularly the last 2 weeks or so, that defense is really good, and they're going to get after you. As they're fourth in defensive in yards allowed, fifth in points allowed, sixth in red zone defense. So they're top 5 to 10 in every single defensive category, basically. They are a problem. They already blew the Lions out. They've got the games with the Bears coming up. I think if I had to put money on one of the NFC North teams to win a playoff game, it would be Green Bay. I think Chicago, first year with Ben Johnson, just starting to get things together. They're kind of grinding out games. They're running the football a lot, defense, doing whatever they need to win games. They're managing them and just trying to execute in the moments. That's great. That's very smart for the situation they're in. The Lions, are not as dominant as they have been. They're relying on these big plays from Gibbs to pop. The defense is up and down. The offensive line doesn't seem as strong as it has been in years past. The Packers, when you look at all three of them, I think are the most complete football team. I think I like Ben Johnson the most, just as far as play calling goes, but the Packers have a more complete roster. The defense, I think, with the experienced quarterback play and them having been in the playoffs, won these playoff games, as has Detroit, but the roster for the Packers makes up the difference. Right now, I think Green Bay would be my bet out of the NFC North, but this is going to be a really exciting battle to watch come down to the wire, because any of them could win the division. Even if they don't, all of them could make the playoffs, depending on, how their games with each other work out. It's going to be fascinating to watch. This is really exciting football as we get to the end of November. Okay, as we get ready for Thanksgiving, I just wanted to look at each conference, the playoff picture, and see where we stand, because we're getting to the home stretch. December's almost here. Big games, determining seeding, who's in, who's out, who are the Super Bowl contenders. Right now, let's look at the AFC Playoff Picture. The Patriots grinding out that win against the Bengals. They are the 1 seed. The Colts fall to the 3 seed after the loss to the Chiefs. Broncos are the 2. Ravens, now after winning and the Steelers losing, the Ravens are atop the AFC North. Right now, they would be the 4th seed, even though Lamar just doesn't look healthy. They just don't seem right. Let's go through it team by team real briefly. Patriots right now are the 1 seed. The problem is they lost their left tackle, Will Campbell, probably for the season. Their left guard got hurt. I don't know his situation, but those injuries mounting for the offensive line. Drake May had his first bad game probably since week 1. I think that's going to be a really big issue. I was talking on this show last week how I thought the Patriots were the best, most complete team in the AFC at the moment. Those offensive line injuries really, really scare me, particularly Will Campbell. If he's gone for the year, I think that could really hurt the Patriots. They're probably going to win the division. I think they're in a good spot there. I don't know if they'll be able to hold Denver off for the 1 seed. Denver, they just keep executing. I don't believe in Bo Nix. I don't think he's a great quarterback, but he played great against the Chiefs, and that defense is elite. And when you have an elite defense, not just good, not just great, when you have an elite defense, I just don't count you out of anything. I think you can do anything you want to do, and that's where the Denver Broncos in. The Colts, probably in a good position as long as they, don't drop anything crazy. They should win the South, host a playoff game. The Ravens, I think because of that division and how weak it is, they're going to win it, although I don't think they're a real threat. Maybe if Lamar gets healthy down the stretch, they will surprise us. Until I see them look better, Lamar just doesn't want to run. You can tell he's not very healthy. Even when he's throwing, he just doesn't look quite right. I'm not putting a lot of stock in the Ravens until I see quintessential Lamar Jackson come back. Doesn't mean they can't do it. It absolutely could happen. We could get to the first week of the playoffs and boom, there he is. He pops off and they could go on a run. I'm just, I got to see it before it happens because he just doesn't look right. Buffalo looks bad, but this is one of those years where every team is flawed. Despite their flaws and despite getting manhandled by Houston, they've still got Josh Allen. It's going to be probably good enough to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to miss. I don't see the Steelers or the Dolphins knocking them out. I don't think they're going to fall below the Jaguars. So they're going to be in. The question is, how much noise can they make? Could they go to Denver, go to Indianapolis and win a playoff game? Maybe. Indianapolis probably more so than Denver. I don't like them against Denver. That's a tough matchup. Jacksonville Jaguars, they won today, but good Lord, Trevor Lawrence is just not very good. He is so inconsistent, so up and down. I love how anytime he makes a mistake, the camera immediately cuts to Liam Cohen because you can just see the disgust on his face because he's doing a pretty good job. And he's like, man, I can only manage the quarterback so much. Trevor Lawrence just not what we want him to be. The Chargers, I don't know, man. They're also up and down. The injuries, I really have no idea what to make of the Chargers. I think the Steelers are irrelevant. I don't think they're in this conversation at all. Even when Rodgers comes back, obviously, he's better than Rudolph. They need him, but I don't expect them to be a threat as we move down the stretch. The Texans and the Chiefs, they're going to play each other, and that's going to be a huge game. 2 weeks ago, as a Chiefs fan, I wasn't worried about it. Now I am, because just like I said with Denver, when you have an elite defense, you can do anything. The problem with Houston is a lot of the season, their offense has been bad. Like the offensive line has been bad, which leads to CJ Stroud kind of being terrible. Lately, these games with Davis Mills, he's played solid. He's done what he needed to do. So if they can just get, mediocre play from their offense and CJ Stroud, if they can just be competent, be smart, not turn the football over, and continue to unleash Anderson and Hunter, the Texans could go on a run that might surprise some people here because that defense is awesome. I would love to see a Texans-Broncos playoff matchup. That would be awesome. And the Chiefs, you can't count them out because of Patrick Mahomes, obviously, and Andy Reid. The Colts win is big, but they are in such a tough situation, and they're behind all these other teams on the tiebreaker. That's why they really need to beat Houston and win out down the stretch, assuming none of these other teams collapse. Obviously, Miami's not a factor. If the Chiefs get in, could they make some noise? Perhaps, but I'm not ready to say everything's right with Kansas City after one strong performance. So the AFC completely wide open because right now, if you told me any of these teams, Patriots, Broncos, Colts, Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, Texans, I could see any of those 7 winning the AFC. I don't think the Jags could do it. I don't really see the Chargers doing it. Maybe I'm wrong, but Patriots, Broncos, Colts, Bills, Texans, Chiefs, maybe Ravens, those are the teams I think that could win the AFC, go to the Super Bowl. So this is anybody's game. These next couple of weeks mean a lot because there is not a lot of room for error. All right, let's take a look here at the NFC playoff picture. The Rams moved to the top of the board. Right now, they would have the 1 seed. As you see, Philly falls to number 2. You've got Chicago at 3. That's going to end up being the winner of the NFC North. So that could be Chicago, Green Bay, or Detroit. All 3 of those teams still in it. Tampa just continues to unravel, which really upsets me because I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. I believed in Baker. The injuries are just starting to become too much, and the defense just isn't very good. They don't seem to have a second pitch. But if you look at the structure of the NFC playoffs, so say the winner is going to be, Philly or LA, either way. So you've got the NFC West and NFC East as the 1 and 2. The 3 seed is going to be whoever wins the NFC North. So that could be Packers, Bears, or Lions. The 4 seed is going to be whoever wins the South. And we've all had the Bucks penciled in for it. The Panthers are coming. They're 6-5. And with Tampa unraveling and Baker Mayfield getting hurt, shoulder injury, if he's out for an extended period of time, the Panthers are probably going to win the division. If Baker Mayfield is done, then this might be the Panthers division for the taking, which is crazy. They are the quietest 6-5 team ever. I mean, I know no one wants to talk about them because we're all like, yeah, they're not really that good, but they're 6-5. And Canales is doing a really solid job. Bryce Young, yes, he's up and down. He'll have a game where he looks incredible, then he'll look terrible. He is 4'6", so he's going to struggle a little bit. But credit to Canales and what they're doing in Carolina because they're poised to win that division now if these things continue to break their way. Now, if they played Seattle, in the first round of the playoffs, I think they would get bludgeoned, but you still get them credit for getting to this point. So that's how the 4 seeds will shake out. These two, you're going to have probably second place in the NFC North and second place in the NFC West, assuming Dallas doesn't go on a run, which is possible. That final wild card spot is probably going to come down to San Francisco and Chicago, maybe Dallas though. So those 3 could be battling out for that spot. Right now, San Francisco's just got more of a leg up. Dallas is behind the 8 ball because of the amount of games they've dropped. But this is maybe not quite as open as the AFC, but it's anybody's for the taking. Doing the same exercise of these teams, who could I see winning the NFC? I think the Rams could. I think the Eagles could. I think the Packers, the Seahawks, less so the Seahawks just because I don't trust Darnold, but let's put him on the list. But I guess you would have to put the Lions right now. So I say those 5, Rams, Eagles, Seahawks, Packers, Lions. I think one of them would be the team that's going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. But anything can happen. You get into the playoffs, you make these are single elimination games. Anything could go your way. It's going to be so exciting to watch how this plays out because while it's different than the AFC, it's not as topsy-turvy. It's a lot of teams we expect to be there, but they're all really tight and no one's running away with their divisions like you expected, other than maybe the Eagles. It's going to be crazy to watch how this unfolds because through 12 weeks, all of the records so close, anything could flip. After 1 week, one team could be in and another could be out when they've been in for 6 weeks. This is going to be a crazy final few weeks of the season. I can't wait to see what happens. All right, I'm going to cut it off there. That's enough of me rambling. We've got Thanksgiving coming up. Everybody home for the holidays, probably going to see family. Be safe in your travels. Thanks for being with me. Shorter show this week, but we wanted to look at the bigger picture topics because a lot of the team discussions were similar to what I said last week. What I said about the Chiefs. Check out my video from last week. I kind of talk about their issues. Buffalo, I talk about their inconsistency. Talked about that last week. The Packers, I mentioned them. So Chicago, I talked about them maybe being a mirage because of the schedule. So a lot of my takes on these teams last week would have been my same take this week. So while I did talk about a couple games, I mainly wanted to just look at the way the season was shaping out, take a moment to say, all right, let's catch our breath. Let's see where we stand. This is the playoff picture. This is what these teams need to do. This is what we could be looking at. That's kind of what I wanted to do at the end of the show, do an overview, see how things play out, because this is the wildest NFL season I can remember in a while. I'm not saying it's the most entertaining. It's just the most unpredictable, just the craziest because of the teams we have in there. We might have an AFC championship game that's, New England and Indianapolis. That's wild. No one would have saw that coming earlier this season. That's why you got to play the games. That's why we love this sport, because it's the best soap opera in the world. I am Tristan Bunn. I thank you all for being here and watching Sports Bluff. Please look down below. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that button. It really means a lot to me. It helps me out. Costs you nothing. Hit the button and forget about it. And I thank you all for your support. Be safe this week, whatever you do. Enjoy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the Chiefs and Cowboys game. I'll see you guys after the Week 13 games. Safe travels, everybody. Goodbye.